Hello everyone, Lance here. Today I'm gonna teach you how to create this very beautiful, very natural and high detail mountain right inside of Blender using the help of World Blender Pro 2024. And for those of you who don't know, World Blender is a library of nodes that I created using geometry node and shader nodes. The library gives you the ability to create beautiful and high detailed landscape like this within minutes, right inside of Blender without any external help whatsoever. So as you can see down here, this is the node graph of the geometry node using the nodes of the World Blender library. And it's not very complex and it's in a very linear fashion, just go from left to right. And there is very little branching whatsoever. So anyway, if you want to check out World Blender, I'm going to leave the links in the description. You can download the basics version or buy the pro version. So anyway, let's start today's lesson. As always, we're going to start with a blank scene, and again, we will just create any object as long as it's a mesh object, and you can go in and delete everything. All right. Now, split the view, go to Geometry Node Editor and create a new a geometry node modifier, and go to Landscape Node and create a new landscape at the center. And again, we need to configure the viewport in order to view the large landscape. 10,000, all right. And today we are going to make a very big landscape, so it's going to be 3,000 meters by 3,000 meters. And also connect these to the group input node so that we can go in here and change the settings later on and get rid of the input geometry. Okay, and for this tutorial, I want to create a mountain at the center of the landscape. So I need a mask to prevent the mountains from growing at the edge of the landscape. Okay, so move this here a bit. And to create a mask, we need to call in the UV map. So type in UV, all right. And create a vector map node and subtract 0.5 from the X and Y dimensions so that the UV kind of stay at the very center of the world, like so. Let's move the viewer away like that. And next, we will duplicate this node, and this time we will use absolute. So we have something like this. Okay, now create a vector, combine x, y, z, and we can combine these parameters here into another vector like that. And we will multiply these together. So multiply like that. And now create a map range node. There we go. And use vector for the map range and put this into the vector input like that. Connect this to the viewer so we can see what's going on. All right. And we will scale this value, this vector by 0.5. Basically, we divide it by 2. All right. And this will go to the from max value. There we go. And duplicate this node, use subtract. Okay. And we will subtract this with a value, constant value. Okay. And this will go to the from mean value. All right. And let's increase this a little like that. And also set the z values of the to min and to max to 0. Okay, so we have something like this. And we will flip the values of the x and y dimension of the to min and to max values to 1 and 0, like so. And next we need an RGB curve node. So it's in the color RGB curve, and change it to something like this. It's a very slight S curve like that. Okay. And now we can separate the XYZ like so. And finally, we will multiply these two values together, the X and Y values. All right. So now we have a very nice mask for the landscape. So you can control the mask using this value. All right. Now we have a very nice mask for our landscape. It is time to store the mask into the landscape. So attribute, store named attribute, connect this here, and also move the output node all the way to the right. Okay. And we will call this mask and store this value. Okay. Now we are ready to make our mountain. So for this landscape, I'm going to use the chip displacement and pull it in like that and make it bigger. Okay. Now it's time we use our mask for this slot right here. So call in the mask attribute and connect it to the mask input of the displacement node. So now you see we have a nice mountain at the center of the world, of the landscape object. And let's make it higher. Let's say 1,500 meters. And let's set the size to 3,000 and maybe increase the amount of details. Yeah, I think that's good. And let's warp the landscape a bit, because right now these edges are perfectly straight. It's not realistic, so we need to warp the landscape so that we can bend these straight edges a bit. So let's try 250. Yeah, I think 250 is good. And also increase the details a bit. All right, we have some very nice rocks. Now it's time to terrace the landscape, but instead of terracing perfectly horizontal layers like that, this time we're gonna have a diagonal terrace like this. All right. So again, we're gonna use the UV map to control the diagonal terrace. So call in the UV map. All right. And again, we will move it to the center of the landscape. So by default, the UV is based right here. So by subtracting 0.5 from X and Y dimension, we basically move the UV to the center. And next we need to rotate this a little. So go to vector and vector rotate. Okay. And for this tutorial, I'm going to rotate it by 45 degrees, but whatever, it depends on your projects. You can just rotate by another the angle. And next, let's separate the XYZ channels. There we go. And we only need the X channel, right? We don't need Y and Z. So we have a nice gradient going diagonally like this, right? And now we can put in a math node to multiply this like that. Let's just say 500 for now. Okay, so now we have a controller for the terrace. Let's go ahead and terrace our landscape. So go to displacement and scroll down here to uniform terrace. And it's time to get rid of the viewer. Okay, and also increase the resolution to 256 so that we can see clearly what's going on. Okay, let's make the terrace a little bigger so that it's a little more clear. Okay, now we can put this multiply value into the offset of the terrace node. There we go. And as you can see, we now have a very nice diagonal terrace like that. And you can increase this number to get a more steep angle for the terracing. So I think 1000 is good. Yeah, I think 1000 is pretty good. So I'm going to keep using 1000. And also, I don't want the terracing to happen around the edge of the landscape. So it's time to call in the mask once more. Go to geometry, read the named attribute, and put in the mask. There we go. So now we have some very nice terracing for our landscape. But this is not there yet. We need multiple levels of terrace. Basically, it's kind of like a fractal kind of terrace. So the first terrace should be something very small. So increase this to 512. Yeah, I think it's a little small. So yeah, 12 is good. And we will terrace once more. Duplicate this node. There we go. And this time, this should be like 28. And again, use the same offset and the same mask. And another level of trace. This time, this will be, let's say, 60. And use the same offset as well as the same mask. Okay, it's starting to look good, but I think we need one more level of terrace. So again, this will be, let's say, 160. Use the same mask and the same offset. There we go. So you see, we now have a very interesting terracing going on for our mountain. However, the terracing is perfectly straight. We need to introduce some variation to the straight line. All right, to do that, we will simply use a noise displacement. Here it is, the noise displacement. Just put it in like that. And again, we will use the same mask. There we go. And let's set the parameters for the noise. I think 500 is good. Let's set this to 400. Yeah, I think that's better. And this is 200. Nah, maybe minus 100. Okay, that's better. But this is kind of like a folding mountain, so the folding should occur along a certain direction, like this, all right? But currently it's kind of folding all over the place because the noise is pretty much random. So we need to constrain the noise to something like this. And it's going to be consistent along this direction, all right? So let me just erase all of these. Okay. Now, go to the Utility tab. And here we have this global texture coordinate. Just drop that in. There we go. And let's rotate it a little. Go to Vector and Vector Rotate. And now you have to rotate it the exact amount as this angle, all right? So let's just go ahead and use the same number for both the rotation. So this is 45, but there is one thing you should remember, that this, although it's displaying as 45 degrees, but when you try to put in like something like this, it has to be in radian unit, all right? So if I set this to 45, like so, I have to convert this into radian unit. So create a map node and convert this to radians like that and put it in here. Otherwise, it's not going to be 45 degrees, okay? And we will use the same number for this rotation like that. And then next, create a vector map node and multiply. I'll multiply this by 1.1 and then 1 like that. And we will put this into the vector of the noise. So anyway, it's a little hard to see, so I'm going to change the height channel so that we can isolate this noise. So you see, the noise is being stretched along this direction, and it's currently taking the height information of the landscape into consideration. So you can see the noise is kind of following the height of the landscape. So I can turn 2D vector to get rid of the height information, and now we have the pure noise being stretched along a diagonal direction. Okay, so let's just remove this height channel to have them all work on the same default height channel. All right, now we have a very nice rock formation, and it is time for the most important part, which is the particle erosion. So go to the physics simulation catalog and pull in the particle erosion. However, let's not connect this to the output just yet. Let's go ahead and create a bake node. And in order to use the bake node, you have to save your file first, all right? If your bake node is grayed out, that means you have not saved your file, so yeah. So anyway, connect this to the bake node and activate in viewport. All right, let's wait for a bit. Okay, it's finished, and let's see how long it took. 32 seconds, okay? And let's see the mountain. I think the erosion is a little too strong, and it kind of destroyed all the details. So anyway, let's just render it and see how it looks first before we determine our course of action to make it better. All right, so let's set the convexity the map to 1, and maybe just use the thickness so that we have this very nice edge right here. Otherwise, it's going to be a thin plane like that. Okay, and let's go to our material. Okay, and let's make a quick material so that we can visualize our landscape and decide what needs to be fixed. All right, drop in the quick rock, quick dirt, and quick debris. Mix them together like this, and for this mix shader, we need to use a select slope node to mix them together. And also, let's configure the render engine, use cycles, GPU, and go to the world and create a default sky texture. There we go. And let's render. As you can see, all the layers are gone. The erosion kind of destroyed everything. Let's lower the light. There we go. Yeah, basically the erosion is too strong and it's destroying the layers. You can kind of still see a bit of the layering of the rocks here, but yeah, it's destroying everything. So we need to reduce the strength of the erosion. And let's set this to 0.3 and this to 0.1. And also, I don't want a lot of large particles. So I'm going to set the particles to be something smaller, like 20. All right, and maybe use only 4 passes and bake once more. Now we're talking. Not only it's faster, it's also producing a much better result. So let's see. And it's starting to look nice. So let's work some more on the material. Okay. Let's move things down here and mix this mixture with the rock shader. And let's drop in the landscape data node and use the dirt channel to mix the rock with the dirt and the debris. And let's see. Currently, the dirt layer is a little too thick, and as you can see, it's sticking up the slope. So we need to configure this some more. Just like the last tutorial, I'm going to use the select slope and connect in the normal. Duplicate this, all right? Create a math node. This one will be maximum, all right? And this one will be multiply, all right? And also invert the two select slope nodes, all right? And for this maximum, this first select slope node, use a lower threshold, like that. Okay, and then use the multiply node to multiply to filter away the high slope, like so. And let's increase this angle because the dirt is actually quite sticky, and it can hold a very steep angle before rolling down the slope. All right, it looks pretty good. And let's configure the colors as well as the bump a little. So the bump is a little too strong, so I'm gonna lower the bump for the rock. And also I want a brighter rock color, something like gray or white. There we go. It's starting to come together. And now we have a problem. As you can see, the layers of the mountain is this way, but now the vertical variation is this way, so it's not correct. We need to rotate the vertical variation of the rock material. So let's go ahead and create a texture coordinate, and we're going to be using this object texture coordinate, and go to vector rotate. There we go. And let's use the diagonal axis like so and rotate, and let's just match it with the layering, the terrace. I think this much, maybe a little more. Okay, that's good. And lower the vertical the variation opacity a little. Make it a little more subtle. Okay, that's good. And I'm gonna tweak the color of the debris a little. Okay, and also change the color of the dirt. Something darker and more green. Okay, that's a lot better. So let's rotate the sky a little. I mean, rotate the sun a little. There we go. I like this a lot better. Maybe make the sun a little higher. All right, go back, and I think the effect of the flow map is a little too much. So I'm gonna reduce the amount of thick grass, I mean the opacity of the thick grass, like that. Okay, and let's turn on the denoising. And there we go. We have a very nice, high detailed and very realistic looking mountain. It's beautiful. And all of this was created right inside a Blender without using any external help at all. And it's fully procedural, so at any given time I can go back and change the formation of the rock. For example, I can change this W to get a completely randomized mountain, but I'm not going to do that because I will have to rebake the mountain. And I can also increase the resolution to something higher to get even more details, but I'm also not going to do that now because it's gonna take some time to bake the mountain. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. And again, all of this was created using World Blender Pro 2024. If you want to check out World Blender, you can download the free version, or you can buy the Pro version. I'm going to leave the links in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.